Tempo is probably the most confusing part of reading a program because there's 4 numbers you have to look at. Don't be off put by this. I'm going to teach you a really easy trick to remember, but first I'm going to bore you with some terminology. As tempo is broken down, as I said, we have 4 numbers. The first number is always the eccentric portion of the movement. Eccentric means stretching, but the way you can remember it is it's the easy part of the movement. For example, if you were doing a squat, when you come down towards the ground, that's the easy bit. You know, you're not pushing up or pushing weight. So that movement towards the ground is the easy part of the motion. It's the eccentric part. You then have the pause at the bottom. That's very straightforward before you change direction and come back up. And then you have the concentric number. Concentric means contraction, or when your muscle is doing the hardest bit of the work. 4th number is then the pause at the top. For example, if we're doing a squat, this is how it should look when you're thinking about the tempo. The way down is easy. It's the first number in the tempo. So this is the eccentric, the pause, the concentric, the pause. It sounds much more complicated than it is. But if we had a tempo written in front of us, 4, 3, 2, 1, this would be 4 seconds on the way down, 3 seconds pause, 2 seconds on the way up, 1 second pause. To make things even trickier for you, not all exercises have the eccentric corresponding with the first part of the actual movement. So the squat does. The squat's a really great example because it's really straightforward. You can get your head around it. But a more confusing one, for example, is the shoulder press. Typically with a shoulder press, you'll set up, and then the first part of the shoulder press movement, you're actually pushing up overhead. This is the concentric part, or the 3rd number in the tempo. So before you start your exercise every time, think which bit is the easy bit, which bit corresponds with number 1 in the tempo, which bit is the hard bit, which number corresponds with that. For a shoulder press, your tempo, let's use 4, 3, 2, 1 again, just for the sake of having different numbers for each component. 4, 3, 2, 1. This actually means 4 seconds as the dumbbells are lowering here, then a 3-second pause here, then a 2-second push overhead, then a 1-second pause before the weights come down again. So if we were doing a very eccentric focused program with long eccentrics, this would be long lowerings to the ground if you're looking at a shoulder press. As I said, the key here is to always think about which is the easy bit of the exercise and then go from there. Another really good tip is that it's usually when the weight is lowering towards the ground. This is pretty straightforward when you're looking at barbells and dumbbells. It can get confusing when you're looking at cables. So if you're doing pin-loaded machines or cable-loaded machines, look at what the weight stack is doing. For example, if you're doing a seated row, I'm not going to set up for a seated row, I'm just going to do a fake one for you. Let's say you grab the handles and you lean back and you start here. As you've pulled the handle towards you, the weight stack will have risen off the ground a bit. Now, as you let your arms stretch out, the weight stack will come down. Because the weight stack is coming down to the ground, it's the eccentric part of the movement. Your arms are stretching out. Remembering that eccentric means stretching. So as you stretch out in front of you and you're controlling the weight back to the ground, that corresponds with number 1 in the exercise. Then as you pull the weight stack in towards you, that's concentric. It's the contraction, it's the hard bit of the exercise. And that corresponds with number 3 in the tempo. If in doubt, have a look in your program at the extra info under each exercise, because I've detailed the tempo notes for you and I've made notes for the tricky ones. I also want to reassure you that tempo really is not the be-all end-all when it comes to your exercise programming. Tempo is really important when we are doing exercises where I want you to do a longer eccentric, or I want you to move faster in the more explosive portion of the exercise, or I might want you to do a pause. So if I'm going to get you to do a pause in one of the exercises, you'll see a very long number for number 2 or 4. Let's say your tempo is 2, 4, 2, 2, and it was a squat. This would mean 2 seconds lowering, 4 seconds paused under maximum tension with the weight, then 2 seconds up and a 2-second reset. So tempo comes into play when we are doing particular tempos to build certain aspects of a movement, but it's not the be all end all. If in doubt and you're finding that overwhelming to think about, just do everything nice and slow. Slow and controlled is the key.